Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So, hi everyone. Thank you for joining in this video. Right now, you are going to hear and watch the discussion of chapter 7, the what is it? The continue of language curriculum design course. But I think if you are a teacher and a lecturer or even a tutor of English, I think this sub and this part is really important to you. Because why? Because in this time we're going to talk about the monitoring and the assessment. So as you can hear, there are two terms here, monitoring and assessment. So we need to control what happened, and then we're gonna evaluate or measure what has been done. Okay, so in this chapter about monitoring and assessment, the aim of this part of the curriculum design process is to decide what to test and how to test it. So talking about tests, I think teacher, even lecturer, and the learners or the participants will feel like it's a monster. But this is our job as an educator. I think we're gonna provide a good test and prepare a good time for the students, so they don't think that the test or the evaluation feels like I'm monster or even Hulk or something. So thank you. In this time, I'm a member of group 4, so you're gonna see later some cool and nice presenters, and lucky you, I am the first presenter. I'm Ahmed Sardi. So in this time, I would like to tell and share you about the highlights of this chapter about the monitoring and the assessment itself. So let's come for the first thing. In this time, when we start the class, and then even you have a course, you manage the class, so you have to consider and decide which students or who will be able to run the class. So who will be the participants in your class. So I think having the monitoring and the assessment is very good steps and good choice to run our classroom. Yep. Especially for lecturer and teacher, maybe have different kind of treatment in this kind, but I think it's a little bit same. Okay. Right, friends and guys, maybe you can see this is my virtual screen here, right? Virtual board, I think so. You're gonna see some text here. So there are 6 types of monitoring and assessment in this time. Okay. The first thing that I would like to tell you about the kind of assessment. The first is placement test. Yeah, maybe this is really outstanding and familiar for everyone about the placement assessment. But the first thing when I hear these terms, when I take an English course in several, I think it's quite famous English course in Makassar. So this is the first time I hear about the term of placement test. Before, when I got this, when I have English lesson, or I had an English lesson, and when I was in junior high school or senior high school, I never hear this term. Okay. So I really never heard this term about the placement assessment. So it's coming to my mind when I was in the taking an English course. Yeah. So the placement test. So the staff or the tutor give us a bunch of paper. So we're gonna finish that. I don't know what's the goal, the target. So we just need to finish this placement test or placement assessment in the first of the course, I think. So I think this is really important for everyone to start it. So placement assessment, it is held or conducted at the first time we're gonna have the class. For example, if you have a vocabulary class or speaking class, so there will be a placement test, to see where the students were placed at. later we're gonna discuss this more intensively. The second, this is not a kind of assessment. Okay, this is a kind of monitoring. So the second is observation of learning. So I think having a test only, it's not fair. So we just prepare the test, provide the test for the students, and then see what happens. Sometimes there's so many indicators or aspects that can make the student have a great score or even have very low score, which is not in our expectation. So I think we're gonna have this second terms. Yeah, that is observation of learning. So we're gonna see the students' process and in learning. We're gonna see how the students progress in the classroom interaction or in the classroom activities. So I think having this observation of learning, like maybe check their pronunciations or their fluency or even their word mastery. So this kind of monitoring is really important for us as a language lecturer or English EFL lecturer or teacher. So I think the next is about the short-term achievement assessment or short-term achievement test. This kind of short-term achievement test, if I'm not mistaken, it was when I was in elementary school. We had terms of cawu satu, cawu dua, cawu tiga. So caturwulan satu, dua, dan tiga. It's kind of a 3 semester. So when our teacher come to the class and we were faced with the kind of tests like really problem when have the test, the evaluation test. I think it could be a short-term achievement test. Usually it is conducted daily or even weekly or even in a short time of your learning goals or learning indicator. So we want to check in the part of what is it teaching indicator that we have arranged in our lesson plan. For example, perhaps when we teach about English or general English, so there's some points there. There is a letter, a word, and phrases. So in letter, the topic of letter, we're gonna have the test. So in letter, in phrase, we're gonna have the test. So and also in a sentence, we will provide a test. So maybe it's happen daily or even weekly. So this is really important to check every single indicator that we give to the students. For further explanation, later we will have it. Next is a diagnostic assessment. Diagnostic assessment, sometimes teacher or tutor use it, in kind of like when the doctor check our health, or when you come to see a doctor, the doctor will give you a diagnostic check, okay, to see your blood pressure and even anything, to ask you something. But here, diagnostic assessment for the EFL learners, that is to see the weaknesses and the positives of the students. So after having the placement test, perhaps you give them the short-term achievement test, and there's still some students far from our expectation, far from the learning goals. So you're gonna give them the diagnostic assessment to see what's the problem in that. Yeah, you see the weakness and you see the positives or the advance of the students. So if it's the really weak, so what strategy, so what treatment that you gonna do. But if it's a positive and good, so what reward that you can provide for them. Okay, so the next is the achievement assessment or achievement test. So I think all of us know this. All teachers, I think, all lecturers know the achievement test. But in this case, in Indonesia itself, we know it as a final test. Yeah, that's ujian akhir semester. I think in the end of the course, we're gonna have this achievement test. Yeah, there will be the terms of summative or formative test, I think. And the last is proficiency assessment or proficiency test. So it's kind of a really big problem for non-English students. Even the English students, I think, yeah, because it's like the measurement of all skills in English for listening and speaking, writing, and reading uh, are integrated to measure, to test, and it will be called like TOEFL test, even an IELTS test to measure all skills there. Okay, guys and friends, I think that's the highlights of this kind of monitoring and assessment. There are six, I think. And next, I'd like to discuss you and explore more about three types only of this monitoring and assessment in language learning. So the rest of this explanation will be addressed by my cool friends and cool tutor next of this video. And before we go further, I'd like to tell you the most important thing is about the guidelines before you go to split out about this kind of test. The first is the environment. The environment, when we have the test, we're gonna check the learners. Are they able to have the kind of the test? Or make sure your students or the participants will feel comfortable before they have the test, not running or escape before the test. So because they think the test is like what is it, to see how they fail or success. So as a tutor or a lecturer, make sure the test is really something like to check your what is it? To check your diseases, to see your illness, to check what you need to figure out, what you need to fix. So the learners will think that I want to see what problem on me, and then I want to see how I learn to get this the point, and then what I need to prepare because I already got the target. So I have the score. I got an A or something. So next, what I should prepare, and the next things that you have to consider is about the teachers. Yeah, the teacher is not able to give a test, but should correct them after giving a test. So the very great job, and I think it's very exhausting job. To be honest, having the test, it's easy to make. There are lots of kind of tests in internet, or even when you have what is it, subscribe website to give you many kinds of tests. So I think that's easy, but the most problematic things as a teacher, tutor, and even lecturer is to check their work. So really hard. So we should be smart, or what is it, be a smart tutor or lecturer to provide a test that can make us easily to check them, not time consuming but easy to check, and fun to see the result. The last is about the environment, is the situation. So the assessment should be economical. Okay, the assessment should be fun. Yeah, okay, having what is it, a good time for the participants. And I think the next is about after environment, there will be the needs. The needs, there will be three: the lacks, the wants, and the necessities. Okay, here is the screen. You can see what does it mean. And then the next is principles. I think the principles has been discussed by the previous presenters. I think this is really important too. So these three kinds of guidelines will bring us to create a good assessment and monitoring for the next activities. So here I just have chance to describe about the placement assessment and uh, the objectives or the observation of learning, and short-term achievement assessment. Okay, so the first is placement assessment. So as I said earlier, that the placement assessment is conducted in the first meeting in our course or in our class. So before we start further about the class, for instance, we have academic writing course or academic writing class. So in the first meeting, perhaps the lecturers of the tutors uh, will give the students the kind of placement test to see whether the students are able to come in the academic writing class, or they are still lack of the knowledge or the practice in the academic writing class. So here in that book, it is said that placement assessment or placement test is used to decide what level of the course a learner should get in. So what class the learner should join, and whether the learner should join the course at all. So usually we have this placement test in several kinds of institutions. For example, in English schools, or when you take an English course, there will be some a level that you should fulfill in that long range of the class. So before you have the place of the level from your skill, so perhaps the tutor or the teacher will give you the placement test. Are you able to sit on the first level or even in the second level? But in the class, I think everything is always set up. So that's why some teachers and lecturers uh, don't have this kind of test at the first time, but perhaps it is called a pre-test, or to see the preliminary knowledge from the students or the learners. But I do believe that the placement assessment or placement test will really help the tutors, even both the tutor, the lecturer, and the learners, to see whether they are able to fight for the class till the end of the course. Okay, so the placement test should begin at the first meeting. It means that for the second meeting, the result is already come up or come out. And the challenge of this test, management, is you should do it as soon as possible, because when you are late to correct or to check the students exam or answers, so you're gonna have problem in the second meeting. So in the second meeting, you are going to announce that this kind of learner should be sitting on this class, and this kind of another learner maybe will need an extra class to prepare themselves. But unfortunately, in Indonesia, we don't have such treatment. When the students are not able to sit for the class, there is no any other treatment for them to have before they come to the class. So they just, whether they have a good point or low point, so many mistakes or a perfect score, they will come to the class. I don't know for sure if there's some curriculum that allows the student to come to the class directly, or they will have a special treatment or guide before they have the class after the result of placement assessment is issued. Okay, so what do we need to prepare? So maybe in this screen there will be some examples of the placement assessment. So let me tell you guys that the placement test or placement assessment should be so brief, clearer, and not too time consuming, because this is you build the first impression for the students who come and join with your class. So you should prepare a good test for them that really measure and that really find out the students level or the students place when they will have the class for further meetings. So the placement test should be familiar, uh, friendly, and relaxed. As I said, it should be fun, I think. So it's reasonably brief and easy to mark and interpret. And the last is we gonna focus on the gathering the most relevant information. For example, when you have the placement test, I guess, and I really recommend you to use some websites or applications, so the students will think that this is gonna be fun because they usually use their smartphone, or maybe they are familiar with the laptop. But if you are in a rural area, I think it's less possible to do, right? So there's so many applications or examinations applications like quizzes and Quizlet, Kahoot, and some others that can be used by tutors and learners to have this placement test. So remember, I will underline around here that the placement test is not measuring all skills in English, but just the components of English. For example, just pronunciation and vocabulary and grammar test. So mostly the placement test will measure the students' vocabulary mastery. So this one is said by Mura and Duxton in 1987. Okay, so the next, if you want to have an interview, so yeah, it's possible. So the kind of tests focus on language use include interviews, could be role plays or listening tests with message focused questions, reading passages, and etc. But the most important point is the the component skills. Yep. For example, you're gonna have the vocabulary test. The vocabulary test could be, if you have the application of Cambridge dictionaries, you can use it for the vocabulary test. There will be a matching test, drag and drop vocabularies or words. So it's nice to use. Or even you can use quizzes where you can put the big screen. You can see the students are competing actually, but that depends on the situation and atmosphere where you teach the English. The next is structure. For structure grammar test, I think that's the second top really necessary for us to test the students in the placement test, to placing them. So the basic grammar, like the use of word or phrases, or even the correct sentence or sentence order, that's really important to check for the first time. So having kind of a tenses test or some other advanced grammar, I think it's not what is it possible to do in this placement test. The next is a closed test. A closed test is like paragraph completion test. If you have learning IELTS, I think you are going to be familiar with this kind of test. So there will be a passage. So in the passage there will be some blank space that is only word. So the learner will put the word that is already prepared in some column. So they just, if you use the application, just drag and drop the word. And maybe the last, that's really important to check their, as I said, the sentence order. So there will be sentence completion test. So in placement tests, you can put a various kind of tests there, so the students will not be bored. So remember, yeah, that's the number of items is not too crazy. I think 20 or even less than 20 is proper for them. Okay, so I think that's the example or the elaboration about the placement test. So this kind of placement test is really needed when you want to check the students' further understanding about the course that you want to drive in the class. Okay, the next is the second is the observation of learning. So this time, the observation of learning is not kind of an assessment, but it's kind of learning monitor. So monitoring learners' progress in a course can occur at the level of the learning activity. So this monitoring, again, the set doesn't assess the learner, but is directed toward the task that they do, their performance in the class. So we're gonna see what happened and then how the students progress. So the purpose of the monitoring is to see if it's necessary to make changes to the learning activities in order to encourage learning. So sometimes when we run the class, it comes to second meeting and the third meeting, we got problems that the strategy or even the course, the material is less interesting or discourage the students. So the observation will help us whether we're gonna change the strategy or maybe you're gonna improve or modify the materials, the media, so the students will be eager to join and fully participated in the class. So there are four main points in this item, the observation of learning. The first is what is the learning goal of the activity. So when you try to observe them, the first important thing is we're gonna see the learning goal. Okay. We're gonna have a look at the conditions. That's the second that would lead the achievement of this goal. So after preparing the learning goals and then look at the activities. So the next is we're gonna check the achievement of this goal itself. So you keep monitoring and watching them. The next is what are the observable signs that these learning conditions are occurring? So is there any kind of things that shows the students have well progressed in the class or the students are fully interactive in the class? And then the last is the fourth, what are the design features of the activity that set up the learning conditions or that need to be changed to set up the learning conditions. So as I said earlier that when you find something weird or you see your students' moods is fluctuated, so I think having a little bit change on the media or the strategy, grouping of the class, and even provide some interesting topic. This is will help the goals, the learning goals of your class, I think. Okay, so apart from these that observe them, so you can provide like observations paper or observation sheet. So another way to observe is by learner diaries or log books written for the teacher are really useful information as well. For me, I myself, when I have my class, I always bring a notebook because usually in the wide range member of the class, I can't remember all the names of the students, but I just can recognize their face. So sometimes I prepare my books and then jot down the fully participations what is it fully participated students in the class, and then I'll see what their progress are, and then what's the weakness or what's the negatives, and then what they need to improve. So these notes and these diaries that I made will suit it with the observation list, or even if you're lucky, there will be a CCTV on your class, so that's really helpful for you to check the whole student's activity. So I think this one really important, but sometimes in Indonesian case, these ones are really rare and seldom to find because why we are the lecturer and the teacher are too busy with any other activities in administration, so they forget the students' progress and the students' interest in their course in their class. So the last is the third, that is the short-term achievement assessment or the short-term achievement test. So having the placement test, and then you get to see the observation of the learning. So I think the next step you need to do, or the what is it, in the end of the one meeting, or I mean daily or weekly, that depends on the frequency of your class you teach. So this short-term achievement assessment is really necessary and helpful for us. So it's going to monitoring, looks at the activities as they occur, and is essentially process oriented. So the short-term achievement assessment looks at the product of activities, or even a small set of activities. So the objective of this assessment, of this test, is to see whether the learners are making progress or not on a daily or weekly basis. So it provides a feedback to the teacher and learners. So in intensive course, a weekly test is a common way of carrying out the kinds of assessment. So this what is it? This kind of assessment, I think sometimes a little bit tricky and sometimes also easy. So that depends how you provide the test. So let's say there's some kind of learning indicators or learning goals. This meeting, you are going to teach how they recognize the kinds of words, or let's say that's part of speech. So in the end of your class, you're going to have the short-term assessment, short-term test for them. So you're going to check the student whether they know the difference between adjective and adverb, the difference between noun and pronoun, by providing them a fun test, a very simple test that's really not making them bored to feel and follow all the instructions. So I think the kind of test, what is it, appropriately help us to check whether the students understand with our explanations or our media that we have brought in the class, success or not. By having this test, it's also help us to split and to, what is it, to check the number of students couldn't pass these learning goals or this material, and the students who has well motivated performance in the class. And then when you have a weekly test, I think you're gonna prepare a series of tests as well, because let's say if you are a classroom teacher, so if you are a classroom teacher, perhaps you have meeting 5 meetings in a week. So you're gonna collect them, gather them at once. So you're gonna provide the test, pick 3 or 4 question from one indicator or one learning goal to give them in the weekly test. So in case of English, so the most important thing here to check out is the skills of speaking and reading. Okay, the skills of the skills of productive and receptive. So we should have the, what is it, the short term test with the preparation differently from the receptive skills. So when you have the productive skills, so it's going to be different from the receptive skills. Testing them in speaking and writing will be different from reading and listening. So if you have to check them about their writing, so you're gonna see, for example, you're gonna have them to create a paragraph with several or word limitations, for example 150 or 250. So this good short-term achievement should provide a clear record of the progress that's easily interpreted by the teacher. So as much as possible, it should be in a form to motivate the learners to keep working towards the course goal. So finally, it should not occupy too much class time, but should be a regular expected part of class activity. So it is really suggested that some of the work of short-term achievement testing can be handed over to the learners. So it's better for us to do it regularly, and not only for several courses, but in all courses that we have in our class. So having this regularly will really find the problems in our class, and even in our students and the learners. So sometimes we can also evaluate ourselves after checking their achievement. So if there's so many problems, so we're gonna check our pedagogical skills, or even our preparation before we teach. So I think, guys, thank you. I'm talking too long, so perhaps there's so many things to ask, or maybe there's some of you want to give your opinion or any great ideas. The next explanation will be delivered by the next presenters, my partner. So thank you for this time, and then see you the next time. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ali Shahban Anir, and let me to present about a book from Paul Nation and John McAllister, with the title is Language Curriculum Design. In this book, I focus on chapter 7, that is about monitoring and assessment. So the summary of this book, this chapter, has the aim that curriculum design process is to decide what to test and how to test it. In this chapter, there are 6 types of monitoring and assessment. Those are placement assessment, observation of learning, short-term achievement assessment, diagnostic assessment, achievement assessment, and the last is proficiency assessment. But my focus on what I will describe in this chapter limited to 4 sub chapter. So yeah, those are diagnostic assessment, achievement assessment, proficiency assessment, and how to reach a good assessment. And contain of reliability, validity, and practicality. So let's move to the explanation of diagnostic assessment. Diagnostic assessment, what is used for? This diagnostic assessment is usually used for what? Now, the diagnostic assessment is used to find the gaps and weakness in learners' knowledge, so that something can be done about them more positively. It is used to find what learners know well, so that time is not wasted in teaching. And then diagnostic assessment is a very important part of need analysis. In doing need analysis, this is positively, it's used to find what learners know well. Yeah. And then this is very important part of need analysis, but before doing a course, or before a course begin, and during the course running. So about the sample of a diagnostic assessment is like from Smith in 2002, about vocabulary level test. It helped teacher whether learners should be focusing on high frequency vocabulary, academic vocabulary, or low frequency vocabulary. This is a very important decision because high frequency vocabulary and low frequency vocabulary need quite different teaching strategies. Especially for high frequency vocabularies, every word deserves individual attention in a variety of ways, different as low frequency vocabulary, the focus should be on the development of vocabulary and learning strategies that learners can use independently of a teacher. And another sample of diagnostic assessment, that's about learner self-assessment. Self-assessment usually involves learners working with making a checklist or making scales to indicate their perceived areas of their strength and their weakness. And one effect of diagnostic assessment can be to help learners set their personal goals for a course. Diagnosis invariably reveals a range of needs, and many of these may be best filled by giving learners responsibility for some of them. These personal goals can be put in a written form on a book, where each goal is accompanied by a schedule of work that will help learners achieve their goals. And then we move to the achievement assessment. Yeah, achievement assessment is uh, is used for measure both the achievement of learners during a course and the effectiveness of the course itself. And the key result of assessment, it may be a final assessment test at the end, and perhaps one or monitoring and assessment to test part of the way through a course. And then a course may have the purpose of picking up learners who are not achieving, so that something can be done to help the learners to learn. Yeah. And the characteristic of achievement test or achievement assessment, the first is they are based on material taught in the course. This depends on the materials in the classroom, maybe. And the second is learners usually know what kind of questions will be asked and what material will be covered in the course. And the third is they are criterion references. It means that there will be a standard or criterion set, yeah, which will indicate whether learners have achieved enough to be given a pass for the course. So the learners are not assessed in relation to each other, but in relation to a predetermined criteria. For example, is about the remedial system in a school. Yeah. In mastery test, for example, in a mastery test, there is a high criterion that that have been set. And for example, the passing grade, for example, maybe 80% and 90%. So the learners can be given repeated opportunities to study the material and sit the test until they reach the criterion of mastery. So they can try it more until the students or the learners reach the passing grade. Yeah. And then another assessment method, yeah, actually some aspect of assessment are better done in other way. For example, in writing skill, assessing skill in composition writing to obtain a reliable measure of writing skill, it is necessary for learners to write more than one composition. It means if the learners become understand and can make a writing with more than one composition, it means that the student has achieved the goal. So we move to the explanation about proficiency assessment. So proficiency assessment, what is used for? Usually, proficiency assessment it used for language tests. This become an evaluation for language proficiency. They represent an independent measure of the relevance and adequacy of a course. Yeah. The key results of proficiency assessment is about the purpose. The purpose of a proficiency test is to show how much the learners know of the language or a particular part of the language. The proficiency test is likely to cover a larger range of items and skills. And then proficiency assessment has the goal of seeing where learners have reached in their knowledge of the language. Here's the characteristic of proficiency test. Proficiency assessment is based on items drawn from the language as a whole rather than from the content of a particular course. It tries to measure a learner's language knowledge in relation to other learners who may have studied different courses, or in relation to areas of language knowledge that are based upon an analysis of the language. And about sample, uh, this is really familiar with us, about IELTS and TOEFL. These two sample of proficiency test, language proficiency test, yeah, actually awaits all learners at the end of a course. This test may be working as a criterion reference test to determine whether a learner goes into an English medium university or not. TOEFL is offered in 3 formats, and for the widely used internet-based test, IBT, this criterion is usually set a score of 79 or 80 out of a possible 120 for entry to an undergraduate course, depending on which university is setting the criterions. This depends on the university, the rule in the university. The IELTS test uses a 9-point scale with a score of 6, 6.5, or 7 usually being necessary to gain entrance to a university. Sometimes the test may simply act as a norm reference test, which shows learners at which percentile of proficiency they are in relation to others. Yeah. So an important value of proficiency tests is that they are one source of evaluation data for a program. They represent an independent measure of the relevance and education of language course. Yeah. And achievement measures before the course and before learners who have done the course, but it is possible what was is being done of the course, even though it is done well, does not represent what is meant to know the language. So that's about the proficiency assessment. And let's move to the next step is the next explanation, yeah, about good assessment. All assessment need to be checked to see it is doing its job properly, and that it is not causing unnecessary work. In most investigative procedure, including the tools for need analysis, course evaluation procedures, and tests and other measures for assessment can be examined by considering these 3 criteria. Those are reliability, validity, and practicality. So here we come to the reliability meaning. Yeah? Reliability, reliability is a consistency. Yeah, so that it is called reliable because it gives the same result on several trials, several consecutive trials. Reliability used to measure by having the learner sit the test twice, even 3 times, 4 times, or more, by splitting their scores on the individual test items into uh, 2 equal groups and seeing if the learners get the same score on both groups. The key results, yeah, it called reliable, or a test is more reliable if it is always given under the same condition, always given under the same condition, and it is consistently marked. It has large number of points of assessment. There is many questions, or as in dictation, many items that are marked. And the last, its question and instructions are clear and unambiguous. So I will emphasize that reliability is a consistency, yeah, consistency so that it is reliable, yeah, even it gives the same, it gives the same result, even it's has several trials. So that is about reliability, and then we move to the next about validity. So a valid test measure what is it supposed to measure. That is the keyword, the first keyword. The next keyword is a valid assessment test measures what has been learned on the course. And the next is a valid listening test measures skill at listening. So those are the point. The most practical ways for a teacher or a curriculum designer to check the validity of a test are just to look at its face validity and content validity. So what is face validity? Face validity is if the test is called a reading test, does it look like a reading test? Or if it is called a vocabulary test, does it look like a vocabulary test? Yeah. So it means what is the test look like? Yeah? If that is reading test, so it is look like a reading test. Also in writing test or grammatical test, this is look like a grammatical test. Yeah. About the content validity works by analyzing the test and comparing it to what it is supposed to test. To find the content validity or of an assessment test, we will have to look at the part of the course that was being tested and list the items and skills that have been taught. Yeah, that is about validity. And the next is practicality. Practicality is not only must a test be reliable or to be valid, it must also be practical. Practicality is examined by looking at the cost involved in administering and scoring the test. And then looking at the time taken to administer and sit the test. And then the time taken to mark the test. And the number of people needed to administer and mark the test. And then the ease of interpreting and applying the result of the test. So if is it possible, where possible, reliability and validity should be preferred over practicality. But usually compromise is necessary. Improvements in practicality can often be found by giving careful thought to the test format and by doing a little pilot testing. So if we want to know that the test is practical, so you'd have to be testing to test the test. Yeah, I mean make a pilot testing, always trying. So all of the indicators, the 5 indicators that I have been explained just now, it can be measured well. It can be managed well. Yeah, yeah. So to reach the good assessment, we have to concern or focus on these three basic criteria. Actually, yeah, we have to look at the reliability, the validity, and practicality. So we move to the mindsets of curriculum development. Yeah, about this quotation, learning another language is not only learning different words for the same things, but learning another way to think about things. It means that we have to think more about the way to deliver the 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 learning process, the way to deliver the 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 way to find strategies, the way to make the learners to be understand with what we taught there. Yeah. The next quote is from Anies Baswedan, ya, bahwa kurikulum berubah. Tidak otomatis kualitas pendidikan meningkat. Namun, jika kualitas guru meningkat, kualitas pendidikan pasti meningkat. Itu kuncinya. Ya. So beside the the way to develop the curriculum, the teacher also have to get their best, yeah, so they can deliver the curriculum well. Yeah. And thank you very much for this chance. And I think this is the end of my presentation. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good morning, everyone. Thank you for the chance. I'm Syahrianti from Group 4. Well, the previous presenter have explained about Chapter 7. It's about monitoring and assessment. Well, on this occasion, I would like to present about Chapter 8, Evaluation. So the aim of this part of the curriculum design process is to decide how to check if the course is successful and where it needs to be improved. So the contents of this chapter actually consists of 8 parts, but I only focus on 4 topics. So the first is what is an evaluation. The second is steps in an evaluation. The third is purpose and audience of the evaluation, and the type and focus of the evaluation, while the other part will be presented by the last speaker. So before we continue to the steps of the evaluation, let's have a look at definition of evaluation. So according to Groundland and Lean, evaluation is a systematic process of collecting, analyzing, and interpreting information to determine the extent to which pupils are achieving instructional objectives. While CEBB in 1977, who described evaluation as the systematic collection and interpretation of evidence leading as part of process to a judgment of value with a view to action. So here, evaluation plays an important role in teaching and learning process because it can help the teachers and learners to improve the teaching and learning. So evaluation here is a continuous process and periodic exercise. So in reality, most evaluation are more narrowly focused and maybe answering questions like the following. Question: is the teaching on the course of a suitably high standard? Is the course preparing the learners properly for their use of English at the end of the course? For example, to pass the TOEFL test, to study in English medium university, or to work as a tour guide. Are the learners satisfied with the course, and the last one is the course cost effective? So these are the steps in an evaluation. So there are 9 steps here that we have to consider when making evaluation. The first step is we have to find who the evaluation is for and what kind of information they need. So after we find who the evaluation is for, the second steps is we have to find what the results of the evaluation will be used for, to improve the course or to decide whether to quit or get rid of the course. After we find the result, and then we decide if the evaluation is necessary or if the needed information is already available. So the next steps, we have to find how much time and money are available to do the evaluation. After we find how much time and money, and then we decide what kinds of information will be gathered. These are some information will be gathered in this step, like amount of learning, quality of learning, quality of teaching, quality of curriculum design, teacher satisfaction, learner satisfaction, sponsor satisfaction, and financial of the course. So after we decide the kinds of information, we we then try to gain the support of the people involved in the evaluation, like from the learners, the teacher, and also the evaluator. After we get the support of the people, and then we decide how to gather the information and who will be involved in the gathering of information. After that, we decide who or how to present the findings. Yeah, and the last steps is we decide if a follow-up evaluation is planned to check the implementation of the findings. So that's about the steps in uh, evaluation. So the next slide is about purpose and audience of the evaluation. There are three purpose and audience of the evaluation here. The first is large-scale evaluation. The second is teacher-led evaluation. The third one is management-led evaluation. What is actually large-scale evaluation? Large-scale evaluation here, it tends to focus on major educational innovation with significant financial backing with an underlying agenda. In teacher-led evaluation, um, it consists of uh, seven seven parts here in teacher-led evaluation, because the teacher here should explore uh, the students' need and wants. After this, the teacher explored the students' need and wants, and then the teacher should evaluate the course book and materials. After that, the teacher should design and evaluating the task type, and then the teacher also should exploring the teaching and learning interaction, and the last is the teacher also should design and evaluating the assessment. And about the last is management-led evaluation. It means that how to develop a management information system to assist evaluation. So at the end of this preparatory stage of the evaluation, the evaluator should be able to tell the person commissioning the evaluation whether the evaluation is worth doing, whether the evaluation is possible, how long it might take, how much it might cost, whether the evaluator is willing to do it, what kind of evidence the evaluation will gather. So if all the people are in agreement, then the evaluation can continue. So the next slide is about the type and focus of the evaluation. There are two types and focus of the evaluation, namely formative evaluation. The second is summative evaluation. As you can see here, a formative evaluation has the purpose of forming or shaping the course to improve it, while summative evaluation has the purpose of making a summary or judgment on the quality or efficacy of the course so that it can be compared with other courses, compared with previous summative evaluation, or judged as being up to a certain criterion or not. So this is the table 8.1. It's about formative and summative evaluation compare. From this table, we can compare that there are four things that we can see here. Uh, the first is about the purpose, type of data, use of data, presentation of findings. So based on the purpose in formative evaluation, it can improve the course, while in summative evaluation, it can judge the course. And about the type of data, informative evaluation more likely to look at causes, processes, individuals, while summative more likely to look at results, standards, and groups. The third is use of data. Informative evaluation data used for counseling, mentoring, professional development, setting goals, and also adapting material. While in summative evaluation, data used to make decision on advocacy. And the last is about presentation of findings. In formative evaluation, it presented to and discussed with individuals, while in summative evaluation, it presented in a report. Well, I think that's all from me. Thank you very much for your nice attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. My name is Fitria Amalia Akbal. It's glad to see you in this video. Now, I'm going to explain about the material. It is about evaluation. Before I start to explain the material, let me tell you about the book that I have read. It's about language curriculum design. The book was written by SB Nation and John McAllister in 2010. Well, Ms. Shahrianti already explained the material in evaluation. It talks about the definition of evaluation, the purposes, the types, and now it's my turn to continue the next material in chapter 8. So we are going to learn about gaining support for the evaluation, gathering the information, formative evaluation as part of the course, and the last is the result of an evaluation. First, gaining support for the evaluation. According to Kylie and Dickens in 2006, they said that the issue of stakeholder involvement in evaluation is an important one. Actively involving a wide range of stakeholders can result in a better informed evaluation as well as a protective sharing of responsibility. The terms of stakeholders in education refers to anyone who is invested in the welfare of the school and the success of the school and its students. So it is include administrators of the schools, the staff members, the teachers, the students, and the parents, and so on. So here, stakeholders are expected to be able to obtain about educational data and use it to provide support or correction to the learning process. For example, the teacher can look at educational policies, and they can use to improve the learning methods. While for the parents can help the students by facilitating them to get the best education. Next, gathering the information. In order to gathering the information, the teacher may conduct 3 steps, namely interviews, self-report skills, or they may use observation and checklists. In interviews, it can be structured or unstructured question, while for self-report scale, it can be open-ended question. As for in observation and checklist, it can be yes or no scale responses, and the students can give their comment on each item of the question. As we can see, there is a table 8.2. It is a focus and tools for evaluating the teaching and learning. As we can see in the table, there are 3 focus, namely amount of learning, quality of learning, and quality of coursebook. The tools here refers to an instrument that can be used by the teacher to identify the focus. So the first focus is about amount of learning. If the teacher wants to know the amount of learning, the teacher may use an instrument such as achievement and proficiency test, or the teacher may use analysis of coursebook content, or even the teacher might interview the learners. While for the second focus is about quality of learning, in order to know the quality of learning, the teacher may use an instrument such as the teacher may give student achievement and proficiency assessment to assess student achievement. The teacher may conduct lesson observations, and also the teacher may interview the learners whether is there any difficult or is there any material that they face during learning the course. And the third focus is quality of coursebook. The teacher may use systematic coursebook evaluation checklist, or the teacher and learners can use a questionnaire either. Next, the teacher can also use self-report scale, or we can say that it is just the same with a questionnaire. So a questionnaire can be used by the teacher to survey a large of the number of the students. So in questionnaire, it allows the student to answer the question in short time. Take a look at table 8.3. It's about evaluating the course environment. So the focus here is quality of course administration. In order to identify the quality or to check the quality of course administration, the teacher may use an interview or questionnaire to teaching staff and students. The teacher may use memos, handbooks, conduct some observation of procedures, and also the teacher may interview the staff of administration. So what is exactly mean by self-report scale here? As I mentioned earlier, that self-report scale is just the same with the questionnaire. The teacher may give the student score, like if the student's performance was very good, the teacher may score the students by giving them score 3. If the student's performance was poor, the teacher may give them score 2, and if it was very good, the teacher may give score 4, and so on. So the teacher also may calculate how many responded or how many students respond with the score of very good, and so on. The next steps is observation and checklist. So let's see the table 8.4. It is the simple checklist for observing the quality of teaching. So let's read the question here. The question number 1. Does the teacher get the learners involved and excited about learning? Is most of the lesson conducted in English? Do the learners need to use English in the lesson? So the things to consider when making the checklist, those are the checklist must be valid, reliable, and practical. A checklist can be reliable if it can be understood by the person of using it, and it contains several items of questions like the table 8.4. So this is the example of reliable checklist. The checklist can be said valid if the questions are directly relevant to what is being evaluated. As for the checklist can be practical if the questions are not too long, it is easy to interpret the result, and it is easy to use. Next, we move to formative evaluation as a part of a course. So the question is, who will involve in evaluation? Of course, the curriculum designer and the teacher can be an important one of the professional development. So the purpose of this formative evaluation is an evaluation that carried out in the middle of during the learning process, which is carried out every time the learning unit or subtopic can be completed with the aim of knowing the extent to which have been formed in accordance with predetermined teaching objectives. So, the function of this formative evaluation is to improve the teaching and learning process. So, the curriculum designer and the teacher's involvement can be an important part of professional development. And the formative evaluation can be done in following ways. As we can see, there are 4 points here. The first is parts of curriculum design can be negotiated between the teacher and learners. So this negotiation is a kind of evaluation with immediate effect on the course. So this may include negotiation of classroom activities, some of the goals, of the course and some of assessment procedure. The second course can include periodic and systematic observation of class by the teacher peers. So the teacher can observe the students while teaching and learning in the class, and they may discuss it with their peers. The third is staff hold regular meeting to discuss the progress of the course. And the last is the teacher are required to periodically fill self-evaluation forms that they discuss with the college. So the teacher can use self-evaluation. It is self-evaluation forms to evaluate themselves, and they can discuss it with their peers. Now we come to the last of the presentation. So it is a result of an evaluation. When an evaluation has been done, the result need to be presented. The result of evaluations of the teaching are usually available to the teacher concerned and perhaps to the head of the department. Most evaluations involve a written report, or in some cases, 2 written reports. 2 written reports here means one for the person or group commissioning the evaluation and one for the wider circulation. The written report will usually be accompanied by an oral report. The report needs to be considered and then act on. The evaluation procedure may involve some later follow-up to monitor the effect and implementation of the evaluation. So an evaluation needs to result in learning for those who are involved. This learning needs to be applied to the course or to the planning for a future course. As a part of closing, I would like to quote a statement from Nation and McAllister in 2010. In their book, Nation and McAllister state that evaluation is an essential part of good curriculum design. It ensures that weaknesses in curriculum design are found and repaired. It allows for the adjustment of a course, a changing environment, and changing the needs. If evaluation is well planned, it can help the teacher to develop professionally and come to feel that the course is truly their own. Well, this is the end of the presentation from our group. Just now, we learned about assessment and evaluation. We hope that after you watching this video, it will increase your knowledge about assessment and evaluation. I think that's all from me and my group. Thank you for watching this video and thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.